Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. My name is Dean Rees. I'm the Mayor of Wangaratta and have been for the last 6 years, and this is my last council meeting. Thank you all for being here and being part of this. I'm sure you're not here because it is my last. I'm sure there's a few other issues on the agenda tonight that most people are here for. So thank you for attending, and I hope this council meeting goes calmly and we can move through quite quickly and get on to having a cup of tea at the end and a sandwich. Firstly, just so you know that under clause 24 of the local governance rules provides the following: that this public meeting is being held and recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be published and will be retained by council in accordance with council's legal obligation. And as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. I'd also like to acknowledge our traditional owners on the land in which we are meeting here tonight, pay our own respects to their elders past, present, emerging, and acknowledge everybody here tonight as great contributors to this great country and the rural city of Wangaratta, in which we stand on the thing. Opening prayer. Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide this council in its deliberations so that it may truly preserve the welfare of the people on whom we serve. Amen. As we move down the agenda, I will go straight to item number 7. The other one will not apply at this stage. And I'll look for confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting. And are there any comments from the gallery on any issues in relation to our previous meeting, or any recordings from that that have been in the minutes on show that you're not happy with? No? Well, I'll look for a mover. Councillor Benson and Councillor Fuller as a seconder. Councillor Benson, anything to say on the recommendation? No, except Councillor Fuller. Any other councillor like to report? No, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. We'll go to item number 8, which is a conflict of interest disclosure, and I'll look to Councillor Dave Fuller. Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just noting a conflict of interest regarding item 22.1, a confidential item. I have a conflict material in nature due to a sibling who is a board member with one of the groups aforementioned in the reports.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I don't need to note that, but just to note that that is a conflict, and Councillor Fuller, as we are stepping out of the room, you're happy to stay in the room. Thank you. We'll move further down, and I'll look to item number 11. Councillor Fuller again. Sorry. No, I'll wait for the agenda item. Councillor Fuller, item number 11.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Again, I'd like to move a motion to change the standing orders and have reports, number 11 item, moved until after item 21.
You're moving that, Councillor Fuller. Second that, please. Councillor Fitzpatrick. All those in favour, councillors? And that motion is moved. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. As we go down, we'll head further down. I'd like to make a quick mention, though, ladies and gentlemen. In more recent times, I'd like to take a moment to remember Mr John Elwood. John served as town clerk at the rural city guild of the city of Wangaratta at that time between the years of 1974 and 1993, and he passed away on October 7th, aged 89. The town clerk role is equivalent to our current CEO, and Mr Elwood was awarded a public service medal in 1993 for his contribution to this great municipality. The foyer of this government centre is named after John Elwood foyer. We thank him for his service to our community, and we are thinking of his family at this time. Thank you, John. Ladies and gentlemen, before we go on any further, just so everybody knows who is here as part of this council team, I will go around the room and get each of our directors and councillors to introduce themselves, just so everybody's aware of who we are. Directors Ward.
I'm Stephen Scott, I'm the Director of Sustainability and Culture.
Councillor Harry Gossam.
Councillor Ashley Fitzpatrick. Councillor Irene Branch.
Brendan McGrath, CEO.
Obviously, Dean Rees, Mayor.
Councillor Harvey Red.
Councillor Dave Fuller.
Councillor Jack Perry.
Sarah Brindley, Director of Corporate and Leisure.
And Marcus Gooden, Director of Community Infrastructure.
Thank you all. We'll move straight into officers' reports. We'll go to item 13.1, which is our annual report, and I for 23-24, and I look to Director.
Thank you, Maurice. This item is presented to councillors to receive and adopt the annual report for the financial year 2023-24, including the updating governance and management checklist for last year. At the September scheduled council meeting, councillors endorsed the financial statement and the performance statements subject to Fargo approval. Fargo is now undertaking the full audit and review and sign off, which was received on the 17th of October. The two kind of changes that have occurred in the statement since then are noted in the report, principally a $412,000 adjustment to capital works to reflect a change in classification of expenditure and just some updates to the notes that are on the material. Also, just for full transparency, noting there was an error in the last governance and management checklist that was provided, so that's been corrected and attached here, and hence the update in the recommendation for councillors. For those in the gallery, normally at this point, I'll hand to councillors and they'll provide a summary of the achievements over the past year. But as we are in election period, they'll refrain from doing that this year to avoid any, feeling of unfair advantage as candidates. So, on that note, I'll just pass back to you, Maurice, for the council's consideration.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions on this item at 13.1 from the gallery? No, thank you. I'll look for someone to move the recommendation. Councillor Grant, and someone to second. Councillor Benson. Thank you, Deputy Councillor. If there's nothing to say, Councillor Grant. Thank you, Councillor Benson. Great. Any other council like to report? No, I'll put the recommendation to vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you, Director. We'll now move through from item 14 to 15, which is sustainability and culture. We're going to go to item 15.1, which is the planning permit application 24/082 at 174 White Post Road in Everton Upper. And I'll look to Director Ford. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Chair. The planning permit application seeks approval of a retrospective for the retrospective use and development of the land for a dwelling at 174 White Post Road. The dwelling has been established without the required permits, and the application is a duplication of a previous planning permit application that was refused in March 2024. The application has been assessed against the provisions of the Wangaratta Planning Scheme and also the Planning Environment and Environmental Act, and officers recommend that council issues a notice of refusal for the planning permit.
Thank you, Director. I'd like to intervene here and put up a alternative motion. And this alternate motion to this application is that Council issue a planning permit with respect to planning permit application, PIN application 24/082 for the use and development of a land for a dwelling, retrospective at 174 White Post Road, Everton, with the conditions as followed as per usual for this type of situation. I won't read all the conditions, but there are a number of pages of those. So I'll be the mover of that alternate motion. Can I look for a seconder on that, please, on that alternate motion? Councillor Grant. Thank you. So to talk on this, sorry, have I asked? Does the gallery have any questions on this? So to talk on this alternate motion, this is a property out of White Post Road, Everton. There is a dwelling currently on there that has been on there for 25 plus years. Yes, they didn't have the proper permit at that time. It's in an area where there is dwellings very similar all the way around it on small acreages. It then borders onto the old rail trail and obviously onto White Post Road. There is a lovely old couple who, don't mind me saying that, middle-aged couple should I say, who live at that property and who are lovely people. I will state that they've had an engineer's report done on the dwelling, retrospective to state that the dwelling is in good standing order and fit for habitation. And that's the main thing. I've been out to the dwelling on numerous times just to sit with the owners and make sure that they're happy with the process proceeding forward with this, and they are. I urge my fellow councillors to vote this alternate motion up and approve this dwelling that is already there, and how it will benefit farming. It will benefit farming for the process that it's used for. We often struggle at the moment now with young farmers trying to get positions and jobs on farms when they live in town and coming in and out of town on a regular basis, especially in the milking industry, which is around in those areas. So to have farms, small farms for families to start to live on for the future is for these current people, but this does benefit farming. Will it change it? Change the farming process or the living process if we don't approve it? No, there is these acreages that are already there. This is just fixing an anomaly that's there and clearing that. So I look forward to my council voting this alternate motion. Councillor Grant, as the seconder, did you have something to say?
Well, actually, Mr Mayor, you've probably covered all the points that I would cover. You certainly talked about the fact that this is already fragmented land. This is already land that has been fragmented by the development of the railway, and that's been there for a very long time. So it's not that it's, farming land in the broad acre sense. Potentially, it would be farming of another sort. The fact that the applicants have gone to considerable effort to actually make restitution in terms of the application, I think speaks volumes, and I'm certainly prepared to support the motion that you put and believe that this is a positive development that will happen in an area that already has a lot of fragmented development.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillor like to talk for or against the recommendation? Councillor Herrick?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rees. I'll speak against the current motion on the table, and I'll speak to a couple of points. The points being made about this being an area that is already fragmented and has a reasonable number of dwellings of a small size that aren't necessarily directly related to agricultural activity, just because poor decisions have been made in the past. I don't think it's justification to progressively continue to fragment agricultural land. Ultimately, a great number of people in off dwellings in these sorts of settings will just give a greater rise to more opportunities for land use conflicts, which is ultimately the main strategic consideration. In this, I think the engineer's report, which was mentioned by Councillor Rees, really relates to building matters. It's not it's not a consideration, not a relevant consideration in this planning matter, which is about do we permanently and forever effectively give rights to a dwelling attached to the parcel of land, not associated with any activity on the land that may happen now or may happen in the future. Again, it was mentioned about perhaps this will support agricultural dwellings or accommodation for agricultural activities, but in no way, shape or form does this proposed planning permit application marry the two together, that the accommodation will support agriculture. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say. I'll speak against one of the points. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor like to talk on the matter? No, well, that's the mover of the recommendation. Again, I urge my councillors to fix this anomaly, not kick these people out of their home and destroy it because it's on 5 acres and needs to be pulled down because it doesn't represent good farm value. We're in a housing crisis. These people have lived in this property for 25 plus years with my councillors. Let's do the right thing. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you. Director Swart, we will now move on to item 15.2, which is planning permit application 22/10/210 Paradise Court Road, Chesthunt, for a 2-lot subdivision. Gregor.
Thank you. The application seeks approval for the subdivision of the land in the lands in the farming zone and also in the bushfire management overlay. The application proposes to divide that land into 2 lots. The proposed lots will be around 70 hectares and 56 hectares respectively. The application is a duplication of a previous planning permit application that was refused by council in May 2022. Officers have completed an assessment of the application against the provisions of the Wangaratta Planning Scheme and also the Planning and Environment Act, and recommend that council issues a notice of refusal for the planning permit application.
Thank you, Director Swart. Councillor Benson.
I have an alternative motion, Mr Mayor. The council issue the planning permit with respect to the planning permit application top 2/210 for the two-lot subdivision of Paradise Falls Road, Chestnut, and the following conditions, which are again in detail.
Okay. So, Councillor Benson, you're moving the alternate motion that the council issue a planning permit with respect to this planning permit application for this two-lot subdivision in Paradise Falls, and obviously to approve the permit. We need a second for that. I'm happy to second that as the Mayor. Are there any questions from the gallery on this item? Thank you. Councillor Benson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. This is a farming part of the farming, large farming, I would say, in King Valley, in respect to the subdivision taking place, to give some equity to the family members within that family partnership going forward. And being up at the, and spoken to the owners of it in relationship to their going forward in the farming practices, give some sort of certainty that this farming practice or the farming will remain in the family for some sort of time to go. I know that there is a been a report by officers in relation to the fragmentation of agriculture. I'm always a little bit intrigued with this because the fragmentation of agriculture, whether it is aimed to subdivide, the capacity to raise agriculture still remains the same as the benchmark. It depends on the actual owner whether it improves it or not. Planning has nothing to do with it. It remains the capacity of that to be able to produce agriculture is exactly the same as it was 100 acres and this is now going to be 70 and 59 hectares. So I don't accept the point that you're going to be lost to agriculture at all. The property will still maintain the operation of the current frame going forward for some of the short and medium term, and it gives some sort of security to the people there. They're looking to retire or semi-retire, and now they have other family members coming and be able to assist in the farming operation. So if it doesn't go ahead, we might see it get fragmented further or so. Thank you.
Councillor Benson, thank you. Fellow councillors, could we just make sure that we speak up into the microphone so the gallery and the recording can be recorded correctly? Thank you. As the seconder to that alternate motion, I'd also like to speak on it. Can I just quickly go back, Director Swart, to a quick question? Can you tell me how much acreage is in each one of these parcels, approximately?
I don't have those numbers in acres, but I can mention them in hectares.
Okay.
So the first one is around 70 hectares, and the second one is 56 hectares, as mentioned before.
Thank you. 59. So I'd just like to point out the main part of any
59 correction, sorry.
of any application to do this on farmland, the rule is the 40 hectare rule. You need a minimum of 40 hectares to really, without a great farm plan, etc., to come forward on how it's going to benefit farming. This is well above that 40 hectare amount, with one at 70 hectares and one at 59 hectares. This is keeping communities together, keeping families on farms with all their own right to be able to move forward with their own farming activities without the fear of families over the top being able to change that during that time that families get involved in family farms. We need to look after families, and families on our farms is super important. So I'll be voting voting yes on this alternate motion with Councillor Benton, or I will be looking forward to other councillors voting on this. Councillor Russell.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify, your question is 175 acres and 147 acres. Family farms are critically important in our region, and it's very difficult for all families in times like this. And I think this is very, very important to do what we're doing. So I will support the alternate.
Thank you, Councillor. Did any other councillor want to talk on the recommendation, or sorry, on the alternate motion? No? Councillor Benton, as the mover of that, have you got any further reply?
I'd just like to point out one of the conditions will be, the one set the third when we enter in, no more subdivision on those lots at all, so remain what they are. So I think that's secure for the living or gives security so that the farmers think that it will still remain. Equity to remain in the
So, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow councillors, I'd like to put the alternate motion forward. All those in favour? And the alternate motion is carried. Thank you. Director Swart, 15.3 is the Mountains to Murray Tourism North East Public Art Project. Thank you. And the Murray Mountain as well.
Thank you.
Which way are you going?
The Murray Mountains Rail Trail Enhancement Project led by Tourism North East includes the development and installation of public art along the trail. 2 of the 5 installations will be within the rural city of Wangaratta. This report is about the design process for both parts and requests council support for the designs and as presented in this report, and ultimate fabrication and installation of the proposed artworks at the Elder to Tarawinji and also at the Middlewa to Oxley section of the rail trail. The designs have been informed by consultation process, including endorsement by Council's Public Art Acquisitions Committee, and officers have detailed their recommendation in the agenda, and it's also available on the screen.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the gallery on this item? No. Can I look for a mover of this recommendation, please? Councillor Fuller. Can I look for a seconder? Struggling to find a seconder. I'll second it to get it on the table. Councillor Fuller, did you want to talk on the recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just noting that whilst art is sometimes hard to take in some forms, in other forms, other people see it as beauty. And as with any project we are given, we have the opportunity to take it on face value and see what it is responded, how it is responded to. This is one of those projects where we've been fortunate enough through funding given to the Tourism North East to have the opportunity to have art installed. It also includes parts of works that have been included that are infrastructure based, and I think there's a benefit to the process for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. If any other councillor would like to talk on the recommendation on the table? Councillor Benton, dying to say something.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm struggling to support the motion and going forward. For all the constituents I've spoken about some of the designs of what's been out there and what is proposed, I don't think it really fits the landscape. I really have struggled to understand if the person wants to build a shed out there or a house out there, it would be a new colour, particularly the one on the Tarawinji Road. I think in the early processes, I think some of the local community communication was lost. I think we should have been able to come up with some iconic history and been around that area, very close to that, going past with 17,000 people, what Jamie Johnson Land playing with on the front country where the tip, the super station is at the moment. It was dismissed straight away. I think we could do something along the lines of that. I think we also got to start to look at new timing in some of our local artists and some of our own types of sculptures. I know there's one very close to where this is going. I don't know whether they didn't want to put in for it, I don't know. But two things, the first part, the first is to get information to the community. I think if we start to revisit people for some of these sculptures or whatever. I know what the beauty is when they're beholding watching art, I know what I like somebody to. I've spoken to quite a few of my constituents and they are really struggling to understand what we've got.
Any other councillor? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I have to say that I'm a bit like Councillor Benton. I'm a bit dubious about the project. However, I will support the motion today, but I think with the caveat to say that I'm disappointed in many ways that, and I will say more to this to the next item that we have on our agenda, that I feel that some of this artwork is being foisted on our community without our community really fully understanding or accepting that this is going to be something that we as a community will have to maintain into the future. However, art is subjective, and I do love community art. I love art in the landscape. It looks fabulous and it adds a talking point to our community. So I think I'm going to say that I have a strong sense of caution about this whole proposal. It's being funded externally, that's great, but we're going to have to maintain it into the future. I'd like to have seen a little bit more of the community feel in this whole process, and I'll say more to that with the next item that will be on the agenda.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor like to report on this item? Councillor Fuller, as the mover, have you got anything further to say to finish off the debate? Sorry, Jack, did you have something to say? Before Councillor Fuller?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I'm just listening and reflecting on some of the comments made by my fellow councillors, and I do hear what Councillor Benton has said and some of the points he's raised with respect to how the art fits into the landscape. Some of the proposed pieces that I find it difficult to see how they will be sympathetic and complementary to the landscape. Mind you, it's very difficult to grasp something in this design phase and on paper. Materials, textures, how light bounces off pieces, and all of that can have a really significant play a significant part in how the actual piece ultimately ends up. Ongoing maintenance is a consideration in terms of infrastructure costs. I don't think that'd be a great burden. It was a good point raised by Councillor Graham, I think it was. However, in this case, I don't think it will be a huge infrastructure cost, although we should keep that in mind. So on balance, I will support the motion that's on the table this evening. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just acknowledging part 2 of this process, the Miller and Oxley part, did involve a really good workshop with school kids from the Oxley Primary School, and also a session at a local business where locals were invited along to comment and to work with the artists. I think that is greatly appreciated by both the community but also art lovers, and that in the future more of that opportunity is great to be able to ensure community does have a better say in the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Director's Ward 15.4 is the ARTC Inland Rail Wangaratta Railway Station Public Art Project. Thank you.
Thank you. This project is similar to the previous one. The ARTC is delivering public artworks as part of the Inland Rail project at the Wangaratta Railway Station Precinct. 3 public artworks and interpretive signage elements will be delivered as part of that work. This report is about the design of the 3 public artworks proposed. And they are proposed at the station entry, on the underpass wall, and in the rail yard garden, which is on the Spearing Street side of the precinct. Concept designs have been complete for all 3 artworks, and those designs are presented in the report. The concept designs have been informed by a consultation process and have also been endorsed by Council's Public Art Acquisitions Committee. The report requests council support for the finalisation of those designs and ultimately the fabrication and installation of those artworks. And the officer's recommendation is available in the agenda and on the screen.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the gallery on this item coming forward? Thank you. Can I look for a councillor to move the recommendation, please? Councillor Bussell, and someone to second it. Councillor Fuller. Councillor Bussell, did you want to talk on the recommendation?
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Fuller.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just echoing similar, as you'll see, it's both examples previous and now where this is art that's been gifted to us in some way, and just noting, as Councillor Grant mentioned, it's the ongoing maintenance and the conversation around how we accept and retain this art is worth noting, especially with this project.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Grant.
Well, as I said, I'm going to speak against this particular agenda item. The Australian Rail Track Authority, or the corporation, has gifted these artworks to the Ringaroa Rail precinct, which we're obviously very grateful for. However, I've got concerns with the project with regard to the theme, and I think what is significantly missing in this process is that there's no contemporary flavour to what is being proposed. It sort of talks about the history before Wangaratta even existed, rather than the actual rail history, which is a very rich history, and particularly in Wangaratta, and how important rail was or is to Wangaratta. I'm heartened by the fact that some of the interpretation will be an opportunity for council to have further input into. That will be good. I'm hoping that we will continue to be able to work with ARTC to actually deliver a project that's not only has a historic flavour, but has a very strong contemporary flavour, but a flavour that actually reflects our community. And I think that's what makes artwork acceptable, when people can relate to it. And so I think we're at a point now where we need to make sure that as we move forward, that the work that's being proposed is something that will be in harmony with our community and contemporary community.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Do any other councillor like to report on this item? Councillor Benton.
I'm just going to reiterate what Councillor Grant has said, and I'm not of the same opinion, although I must admit the information we just got related to this today in relation to the interpretation board comes some way to make it a little bit more colourful. But once again, I struggle to understand some of the things that are there on looking out of the art world. What I have to listen to from the public telling me what colourful part.
Thank you, Councillor Herry.
Yeah, I'll speak in support of the motion. And I guess just speak to a couple of the concerns raised by fellow councillors in suggesting that it doesn't pay homage to the rail history and some of those considerations, and doesn't present a contemporary kind of feeling. I mean, I think the signage boards that Councillor Benton referenced go in some ways to doing that, but also I think one of the proposed pieces that constructs a sculpture out of tools that the rail workers use to adjust tracks is a very quite obvious reference to the rail history, and B, I would say a very contemporary take on that and integration of that into public spaces. So yeah, I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Any other councillor? No. Councillor Bussell as the mover, anything to say in conclusion? Okay, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you, Director Swart. We'll now move on to item 15.5, which is the Meadow Creek Solar Farm. Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Planning permit application has been lodged with the state government for a solar farm at Meadow Creek. The proposal is a 330 megawatt solar farm on 566 hectares of land. The Minister for Planning is the responsible authority for the application. As part of the state government process of considering and determining the application, Council was given notice of the application. And this report is presented to Council to provide information to form a position on the application. The report contains discussion on the application and raises a number of concerns relating to the potential negative impacts of the solar farm of this scale in this location. Officers recommend that Council make a submission to state government objecting to the planning permit application being issued, and we do that as soon as possible.
Thank you, Director. It's question time in relation to this item, and I have a couple of questions that I will read aloud, and I will address it to one of our councillors for at least two of these questions. So the Meadow Creek Agricultural Community Action Group asked the following questions for the council meeting for tonight, of which I directed to Harry Bussell for a reply. To Councillor Harry Bussell, do you have a conflict of interest in voting on the Meadow Creek solar proposal? First question of that question.
Mr. Mayor, I've considered all questions here and I've been on it.
We understand you have a neighbouring relative who has a 500 kV transmission line running through his property. Are you within close proximity to these same lines? And you are within close proximity to these lines.
I would be several kilometres away in a different valley.
Have you considered benefiting from a renewable facility, solar and or battery on your property now or in the future?
No, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any high voltage panels in my property.
Has your relative considered financially benefiting from a renewable facility in the future?
I've got no idea what my relative is.
If so, would there be a conflict of interest? And obviously you've answered that, so that if so, it doesn't need to come. I'll go to another question asked by Brad Hennessy. Asked the following questions to also be presented. Questions to Harry again. Have you been approached by any renewable developers about your land and the opportunity for a renewable facility?
No.
Have you had any discussions with any renewable developers about what an agreement and or financial outcome for you with a renewable facility on your land would be?
No.
Have any of your neighbours, relatives been approached by any renewable developers about their land and the opportunity for a renewable facility?
Don't know.
Have any of your neighbouring relatives had any discussions with any renewable developers about the agreement and or financial outcome for them with a renewable facility on their land?
I don't see it. Bank balances, I don't know.
Great, thank you, Councillor Bussell. I'll go to another question by Derek Person, asked the question for the council meeting tonight as well. And the question, can council legally vote on whether to submit an objection or not to the proposed solar farm? As this vote is not approve/decline the planning of the solar farm, but more of a feel-good vote to calm the mob. With the council in caretaker mode until 6 p.m. Saturday the 26th, it's actually 6 a.m., is that correct, Brendan? By having this vote, it would seem to be outside of the terms of the Local Government Act of 2020, as by having the proposed vote and seeing which way the current councillors vote on this matter. It has potential to change how people may or may not vote in the coming elections, and will also reflect an opinion of the current council, which may or may not be different to the new council after the elections, and therefore this vote would be illegal according to the Act. Director Swart, would you have a reply for that?
Yes, thank you for that question. The Local Government Act 2022 requires councils to have an election period policy and stipulates what council decisions must not be made during an election period. Based on the Act and Council's election period policy, it is Council's view that a council decision on making a submission to the state government about the planning permit application for the Meadow Creek solar farm falls outside of the stipulated prohibited decisions. The matter is considered to be part of a statutory process with a deadline that does not allow it to be considered by the next council. Council requested additional time from the state government for this process to allow it to be considered by the next council, but this request was denied.
Thank you. So I'll go to the gallery now. Are there any questions from the gallery? And I will state their questions, and bear in mind that we can't give you an answer until what we feel that the vote will go. We know what the recommendation is. Director Swart has read that. Certainly, if there is any questions from the gallery on this item before we debate it as a council and then come to a response, please step forward. Right. Yes. Could you please, sir?
Yeah, Graham Rose,
Graham.
locally. It says in the arguments against the solar farm that land productivity is reduced. That comes as a shock to me because the solar farm is producing and farming sunlight, lots of it. And it's my view that we need to go further with this development of free sunlight electricity. And to say that this farm proposal is not going to be as productive as normal farming, agriculture and grazing, I think is misinformed.
Pretty sure it's classified agricultural.
Was that the question?
Just, yes, that's a statement, not a question, but thank you, and we won't answer it because there was no question in there. Thank you for your thoughts. But again, I'll reiterate, it's question time, not statement time. So if there's no further questions from the gallery, sorry, and you have something standing up. Could you please state your name? Sorry, not you at the front, madam. The lady.
Is the land classification agricultural?
Correct, it's farming zone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, madam, at the front.
Sally Martin.
Yes, thanks, Ellen.
Really? My concern is with the expanse of solar panels reflecting back into their atmosphere. What I want to know is, are they aware of the differences in surrounding temperature and moisture content of the environment? Is that going to be affected? I've heard in cases where it has risen the temperature of the surrounding area. And we're also concerned about the moisture coming up out of the ground is blocked.
Yep.
And it's reflected back up into the atmosphere, the heat, as a heat bank result for the environment. I want to know how much research has gone into that side of it, and any statements on befores and afters. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question and probably a hard one to answer without having scientists here to approve that. Stephen Swart, do you have any reply that you think you could add to that one, or otherwise we'll take it on notification and be able to send something in the future?
I don't think we need to take it on notice. I don't believe the application documents directly address those matters. So, you know, I don't think we got that answer.
Sure. All that.
Yeah, thank you, Sally, for the question. I certainly don't have a clear answer to your questions. I myself have looked into asked those same questions and studied and researched, trying to find some information and elucidation on those matters. My readings certainly indicated that there is no significant heat island effects relating to larger arrays of panels. There's small kind of temperature differentials in the a matter of kind of tens of centimetres or a metre above the panel sort of thing, but it's just negligible and dissipates at distances greater than a metre or a couple of metres. So I didn't come out with anything conclusive. And just regarding moisture, again, I don't have answers relating to moisture coming up. I have read some material which speaks about the precipitation of moisture and condensation and dew formation on the panels, which effectively condenses moisture out of the atmosphere and drops it onto the ground that otherwise wouldn't be condensed in such a manner. And that's generally talked about, that positive moisture influence on the soil. So just some comments, no clear answers. I don't pretend to be giving clear answers.
Thank you, Jack. Yes, John. sit.
My comments relate to...
Yes, state your name, John, please.
Sorry?
Could you state your name?
John Griffiths, Morale. I used to live in Allen's Lane at Billabong, so that's probably really relevant. My question is regard to the future of farming on this particular solar farm. The fact that there's been quite a number of studies, and I'll get to the question in a moment, number of studies about grazing sheep, cattle on the existing solar farm. And I think that there's been lack of consideration as this. I think the council should take into account. If you look at the new Merca solar farm, it's quite a large solar farm, they run sheep on that particular solar farm, and there's really not that much research done. I think in the future there'll be a lot more, it's very likely in my view, a lot more use of solar farms will be seen to be worthwhile having sheep there as well, so you've got a dual purpose. So my question will be, will the council, when they vote on this, take into account the possibility in the future of having sheep being grazed on this particular property?
Thank you, John. Councillors have considered everything in relation to this solar farm with the information that's provided, and it's up to them to make their decision. You'll see that in the vote shortly. Yes, some leeway there, Jack.
Councillors are generally allowed to provide a response to a question. But I guess the question was whether we have considered that point, and I think it's good that you raised it because it is a really salient point, and we don't want to lose sight of maintaining agricultural production, while also growing net production from a piece of land. So I just thank you for raising the point.
Thank you. Thanks, John. Well, if there's no further questions from the gallery, we'll proceed forward. So, fellow councillors, the recommendation is to make a submission to the Department of Transport and Planning objecting to the issue of a planning permit on the grounds set out at the end of this report. Number two, it includes in the submissions the Department of Transport and Planning objecting to this issue of the planning permit requirement that the conditions set out in attachment 3 be included if a permit is issued by the Department of Planning. So can I have a mover of that recommendation, please? Councillor Benson, and a seconder, Councillor Grant. Councillor Benson, did you want to talk for or against the recommendation?
I'm going to support the recommendation. Yes, I can support it, and it would take some few minutes to explain some of the things and might answer the last person's question in relation to it. I've only about 15 reports come through, and they're rather lengthy. Mainly what I have a little bit of knowledge about after being in primary production for 50 years. It is absolutely amazing to read the agricultural report. I don't think I've ever read a report that really tried to come to get us a situation to an end where at one end of the scale they're trying to break this agricultural land out there so bad that it can't be do anything, and then the other end of the scale they can have sheep on it. I kept them with council to remember I asked the applicants at a briefing session here about LPA production, who was going to be the persons involved in holding the certificate of LP, livestock production assurance scheme. They come back and just said that had nothing to do with the planning scheme. Yet one of the reports goes in depth into how they're going to be able to produce sheep on this place at the market price. And I can tell you, if the market price was $8.49 a kilo, and I'm damn sure that they wouldn't get anywhere near that if they ever got an LPA production. And any of the primary producers sit in the room here know that when you have one of those schemes, you have to have a risk management done, and you have to understand what chemicals and what leads your risks on your property. And all the other reasons, I can't understand where is the chemical residues in this batteries. There's supposed to be batteries out there. It's hearsay what there's supposed to be heavy metals in them. There's nothing written down to say what's actually in them. So then it goes on to say that the current owner will be the LPA person. Well, then it's leased off to somebody else, and we've already known that the lease has been sold 2 or 3 times. And I would say the chief veterinary officer would be tearing his hair out and understand in a situation of a stock standstill, who's responsible under this thing? And I think the owner is going to be able to really look at his own production management going forward if he's going to run sheep off his property going forward. Because he's also got a separate property, and if there's something contaminated there, and if anyone's out in the audience here knows what's happened with the tobacco industry and the anguish that producers went through with testing before and after with the T1s in relationship to selling livestock and having their ground tested all the time periodically for years until they got through. His property as breeder also becomes under the same testing regime. The document in relation to agriculture is, and giving justification, already says it's going to see 75% food production rocks out there, even if they have the sheep under it. The other thing that always worries me with this sheep hunting, in the short term, yes, they'll do very well, but anyone with agriculture will know that under trees where sheep are mostly, within very short time, all that grows over the damn thing is stinger nettles and capeweed. And then if you've got cattle, it's fruity marshmallows and capeweed. And the same grasses will grow under those panels going forward, because that's where the sheep are going to camp. And you'll end up with grass up to your eyeballs of the sheep, and they'll be as hungry as hell going forward. But that's just what I've observed as a prime producer going over the years. The other thing in reading the fire report on this article, one of the planners did ask at the applicant, if you remember, Mr. Mayor, when in case of a battery fire, what water would you put on the battery? And they very quickly said, oh no, it won't be water, it'll be chemical, which naturally you'll put it out with a chemical solution. Yet in the report, there's 280,000 litres of water set aside for the battery storage area. Now, if you're going to use water on it, why is it there? There's no reference of how they're going to combat a battery fire out there. So we've got no idea. I'm just trying to emphasise in the reports, and I think the planners have done a very good job to point out some of the anomalies within those reports. And if anyone's going to make a decision on this facility with those reports, I think you're sitting down a very, very mind sharp very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, do you want to talk on the report?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've had, firstly I want to thank the officers who have done a fantastic job in a very short period of time with limited notice. Thank you, Steve, and the staff. I've had some concern, Mr. Mayor, about this. I won't talk about all my concerns, I'll talk about one, that's fire. Fire is quite real. I've seen plenty of it. Can't be fought on the ground in a solar farm. Can't. No, it's fought by the air. And as I raised this week with developers, that they don't have facilities for aircraft. There's no large water storages around there, particularly in the summertime. So I'm very happy to support the officer's recommendation after just that alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to thank the officers and thank everyone for their time coming here tonight and raising their concerns with us. It is much appreciated. I will be supporting the officers' recommendation tonight. This is not to say that I'm against solar farms. However, I am against solar farms that are not placed appropriately, and I have multiple concerns with this application that have been raised by my colleagues tonight. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Green, do you have some comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, we've sifted through a pile of information and read all sorts of pros and cons in terms of this particular development. And despite being an advocate of renewable energy and certainly its importance to the wider community, there is nothing about this developer-driven application that I'm able to support or even understand. So I certainly support what our plans have put forward. State and local planning policies seek to protect high-quality agricultural land, and we shouldn't forget that, from the encroachment of urban land uses and the removal of farming land due to permanent and non-agricultural land uses. And this is what the developer wishes to do here. This proposed development absolutely flies in the face of our local planning scheme, and I think that's a really significant thing. This proposal seeks to develop the solar factory, therefore making the site industrial. This will mean that more than 570 hectares of industrial installation on land that is some of the most productive agricultural land in Australia. And perhaps to answer John's question earlier about should we be grazing sheep, well, sheep are not suited to high rainfall and productive country such as that. They may be, it might be appropriate in another location, but certainly not on that particular location. We've got many issues to consider, and one of the most important is this is not a location that has been nominated by the state government. This location has been identified in the Hume Region Growth Plan as significant strategic farming land from a state and national perspective, and that should be remembered. VicGrid, the body responsible for driving the renewable energy process in Victoria, has deemed Meadow Creek area a Tier 3 or a low priority site, and would therefore be developed at great cost to agriculture, the environment, particularly as a water catchment, tourism and the social fabric of the local community, which is also significantly important. I believe that this proposal is opportunistic and seeks to cover more than 570 hectares of prime agricultural land and significant water catchment area with batteries and transmission lines, and that's the last thing I want to see. We shouldn't overlook that the proposed development will remove large tracts of native vegetation, mature trees. I'm being told something like 200 trees, but in particular 33 very large trees, removing critical fauna and flora habitat, and put at risk one of the most fire-prone areas in Victoria, which Councillor Russell raised. I'm concerned that the rural City of Wangaratta Council and our community, as well as the broader region, has been removed in part from the decision making, and I trust that some of the comments that have been made here tonight will strengthen our resolve to not to see this happen. The potential for the landscape to change forever, and not necessarily in a strong or positive way, is another area of concern. While we all want, and I reiterate this, want renewable and sustainable energy, we do not want it to come at the cost of the environment, loss of agricultural land, and the ability to produce food, not just for ourselves, but for Australia and the world. Never forget our important place in the Murray-Darling water-producing basin. This is an issue, a process that needs to be both viewed cautiously and with a critical eye. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Graham, for those thoughts. Councillor Herry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rees. It certainly is a really substantial proposal, and we do need to approach it with caution. I too appreciate the staff's work and turn around in a very short time frame. However, I'm still undecided as to whether this is a really fully comprehensive and well-rounded report, or whether it's one which presents a one-sided sort of perspective on certain matters. I'll just go through a couple of matters. I'll just respond to a couple of points Councillor Graham raised first. The number of large trees is concerned. I believe it's 11 large trees in patches and 20 large scattered trees, just to put some figures on it rather than scare people with 200 or 1,000 trees or something like that. But it's a certainly a consideration. Just regarding sheep, I mean, sheep came from England, I think. I don't know where they came from originally, probably from the Middle East I'm not sure of the lineage, but that's a high rainfall country. That's where we got our sheep from. So to suggest that sheep cannot thrive and survive in high rainfall areas, I'm no sheep farmer, but I think that's unreasonable. So just regarding the agricultural considerations, permanent removal, forever, these sorts of words have been used. The report, and this is one thing which gives rise to some concerns regarding the report, uses the language of permanent removal. And I've been told that that is because, I've been told by Director Sport, that's because it will be used for this purpose of solar farms for 20 to 30 years. So that's therefore considered permanent. I don't think anyone in this room can put their hand up and say that they believe 20 to 30 years is a permanent time frame. If it is, our time frames are completely out of whack and we need to reset that. So I think people's fears around that have been fueled by this sort of, I would say, reckless language, which unfortunately appears in the report and is propagated as language which I've heard a lot coming out of the community. Regarding ecology and the concerns there, I think there's a lot to be concerned with respect to the ecological considerations of the site. It's got some good habitats and endangered species. There's the tree removal we've talked about. News has come up that it is flagged as a project for consideration under the Environmental Biodiversity and Conservation Protection Act. And so it should be. That's just a process where projects of high profile potential high impact. It doesn't necessarily mean it will, but potentially significant projects get increased oversight and additional safeguards put in place. However, I can't help but feel that people are acting as if this is a absolutely pristine, managed conservation area or nature area that is being proposed to be put to another task. It's not, it's farmland, it's agricultural land. I don't think everyone believes that agricultural activities are completely innocuous. They cause and continue to cause a lot of environmental degradation. So I just believe that I believe it could be an opportunity for land to be managed in a more considered manner with tighter controls and more oversight with respect to environmental and ecological considerations. If this project wasn't proposed, I don't think any of the investigations would have been done. I don't think anyone would know about the Sloan's frog and some of these other significant things, and they wouldn't be protected. Let's be frank. I would say that the disbenefits and benefits discussion in the report is concerning. It talks about disbenefits and puts a lot of emphasis on that. I don't believe net community benefit is raised. I don't think the considerations around the net community benefit with respect to the project's potential financial implications, potentially very large payment in lieu of rates. I think it's a valid part of the discussion that should be part of the picture. But why is it left off the table? Why is it left out of the councillors, the officers' consideration and submission on that? Maybe just one last point I'll make is around another thing which has been left out, and that's climate change, emissions, and considerations around that. That is a very prominent element of our planning scheme. It's a very prominent element of the Local Government Act 2020. It's not mentioned in here. This is a proposal which is looking at potentially transforming land from what is a net emitter of emissions and a net contributor to a serious global issue that we have, to a activity which will retain some of the agricultural productivity, which is an emitter of emissions and needs to be thought about carefully going forward into the future. But we'll also be exercising an activity, undertaking an activity which is a very significant and important part of what we need to do as a society, which is transition our energy and reduce our emissions. So, on that, I neither support or oppose the application and don't support a recommendation that objects to it. I foreshadow that I will move a motion, if this so happens to lapse, that I would move a motion that Council submits the planning conditions on part 3. The Council submits the permit conditions, but does not submit in support or in objection of the application.
We'll wait to see if this says. Thank you, Councillor Herry. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't go back over ground that other colleagues have covered, but I will reiterate that we were time bound and declined an additional time period to submit. And a key part of our submission in this conversation is the conditions part to it. So should we be overridden or such, the conditions were imperative that we were able to actually put forward some notes should we be overridden. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I hand back to Councillor Benton as the mover of the motion for his last reply before the vote, I'd just like to say a few small words. Shame, shame, shame on the Victorian government for firstly taking away our appeal rights. Our third party appeal rights is VCAT. We put a recommendation to the Victorian Council through the MAV of all our councils and to bring back appeal rights, which got upheld by, I think it was 94% of all councils said to bring them back. Of the remaining 6%, they weren't there to mean. And the Victorian government has, to get better outcomes for situations like this. I'll also put the shame on the Victorian government, again, shame, 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 for offering us 28 days to reply to this planning application. And again, through Director Swart, we put in a situation where we asked for more time, for an additional 28 days. They said no. This is probably the most important issue affecting our community in my 8 years on council. And again, the time that's given to this is deplorable. I urge the Victorian government to consider the abolishment of this solar factory and say no to profits and financial gain. And we know that this is all about money. This is not about our land, it's all about how much money the applicant, the owners of the land, are going to make, and it's billions. We must put our community first. We have solar farms. We've got one out the road, North Wang, that we've constructed by an organisation. We had one objection. This land was zoned industrial, not farmland. We have a water catchment area that is massive. And if you look at the pictures of the floods and the catchment area of this land and normal rainfall in this land that runs into our creek systems, our King River, right through the heart, into our Ovens River where it meets down here at the junction. And guess what we do with it here in our community? We drink from it. And I don't know what the chemicals are going to do in the future. This is the Victorian government's short-term thinking, and it's going to be the hurt of us in the long term. In 10 years' time, I know what they're going to say. We made a mistake. Let's try and cut that mistake off and get the Victorian government to change their mind and not approve this solar farm. This is our communities out here that we love, and this is the destruction of our food industry, and a financial loss to all neighbours surrounding this solar farm, and maybe a great health loss made to all of us in the future. Do we want solar as part of our intermittent energy process? Yes, but we need it in the right locations. We have millions of acres of arid land that you cannot crop, cannot graze. This is where solar factories need to go. Be part of that. We need the Victorian government to invest these billions of dollars to get the power to Melbourne, where it's going. The power's not here for us here, it's for Melbourne. So I urge all my councillors to agree with this recommendation. It's right to the Victorian government. Let's work hard not to have a solar farm or any solar farm out in this area. The most profitable land for agriculture, our food bowl, and our community. That's the main thing. So my fellow councillors, let's vote for this scenic country to stay as the most pristine scenic country in northeast Victoria, probably actually in Victoria, and keep it as it is, and keep our communities alive and well. Thank you. Councillor Benton, as the mover of the motion, you have a right to reply.
I'd just like to reiterate that the information that the planners have come and had the work which has been supplied by the applicant is quite frankly been sufficient. And I think this is sort of academic information we're going to have to be allowed to get through in order to make a decision on what people that are naive to what is happening in their country. Planning in Victoria is a very dangerous place. Confidence in be able to make a decision on facts and figures of what I've been able to read, and when you try and reconcile some of the facts and figures, they just don't add up. Really, they don't add up. And quite frankly, if I was the owner of this property, I would be embarrassed to see what the figures are in relation to these produced over years ago. I have some idea of the quality of the product we had in another life of the stock age, and what the applicants would have been able to produce. What this report tells us is to try and get the emphasis that the town cannot produce enough agriculture, so it's not worthy of agriculture, is a disgrace. If we're going to allow this to happen in the state, and we'll be afraid I'm getting to the state with a lot of this planning stuff and some of the information by agencies and so forth, I'm starting to get no confidence to be able to make a decision. I think that's where we started. So we've got to put a push back and getting some sort of relevance and getting some sort of clarity around making decisions. We've heard two planning decisions tonight talking about some fragmentation of agriculture and then taking agriculture away. We've got an remittance by the applicant. This is going to be a 75% reduction in food supply. There's not one thing they're making any more of, and that's farmland. They're making a bit more residential land. They're making a bit more farmland, no matter where you are. So if we don't get the message back, we're really in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll put the recommendation forward again, which is for council to make the submission to the Department of Transport and Planning objecting to the issue of a planning permit on the grounds as set out at the end of this report attached, and includes the submission to the Department of Transport and Planning objecting to the issue of a planning permit and a requirement that the conditions set out in attachment 3 included in the permit and the permit is issued. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to move on, and we're going to move on to, 18.1, Ministers Advisory Committee meetings. CEO McGrath.
Those departing a moment to make their way out. Item 8.1 is tabling for council to note minutes of our advisory committee meetings. There is only one set, and that is the audit and risk committee meetings from the 6th of August 2024.
Thank you. There's no questions from the gallery on this issue. I'll look to a mover of the recommendation. Councillor Fitzpatrick, a seconder. Councillor Fuller. If there's no talk on the recommendation, no. Oh, Councillor Fuller, yes.
Just like to thank outgoing councillor Jack Berry for his participation in the audits and risk committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like to note that as well. I've been on audit risk with Jack. I'm not. So thank you, Jack, for your great work on that committee. It was certainly valued. Councillor Fuller. No other comments from anyone? I'll put the recommendation on the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. We'll now go, there is no urgent business, and I'll go public question time. So public question time, again, I'll point out, is public question time. If you have a question, please come up, and this could be in relation to anything. I have a couple of questions on notice that I will ask and bring to your attention. If you've got a formal question, now is the time to do it on anything to do with council. I'll just also let you know this is my last meeting. I don't really want it to go on forever. But I respect your questions. So I have a number of questions, so I'll quickly go through them. The first one is from, I'm going to go to Jessica Carson, ask the following question for council meeting tonight. A growing number of local governments, including the City of Greater Dandenong and Maribyrnong City Council, have formally recognised the state of Palestine and pledged their support to the people of Gaza. In Wangaratta, up to 125 locals meet monthly for a Peace for Palestine gathering, express deep frustration with the inaction of our federal government. Will the rural city of Wangaratta take a stand and officially recognise the state of Palestine, aligning itself with millions suffering under oppression? Your response will be archived, ensuring future generations understand where this council stood on this critical issue, and I look to our CEO Grant for a response.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. I think we had a bit of a discussion at council briefing yesterday when this question was first tabled with us. The first thing I'd say is this council doesn't have an official position on Palestine or any other countries in a situation of war. I think the view is we also don't consider it core or key council business to be taking a position on international issues like that. We certainly have sympathy and empathy for the innocent victims in all war-affected countries, and individual councils. We respect will potentially have their own views about these things, but the current position is that we don't have a formal position on Palestine or any other war-affected countries.
Thank you, CEO McGrath. Jack, Councillor Harry, do you have a response?
Yeah, I do. Just because I feel it was directed to Councillor. So, I guess I just want to express support for, I guess, a lot of what CEO Brendan McGrath has, the position he's put forward and what he has said. I certainly don't think that these sorts of matters are necessarily benefited by having formal positions and decisions put forth in these sorts of rooms. Having said that, I certainly do think as individual leaders and figures in the community, we certainly have a responsibility and a role to play, not bringing it in as a decision or a matter to be considered in this room, but certainly in contributing to the broader community discussion and the discussions that are happening at those higher levels of government which sit above us. And I certainly do pay my respects and express great horror, I guess, at the situation that is occurring that's specifically referenced in this with respect to the Palestinians and their plight, and the war that's occurring in the Middle East and Israel and all the other parties that are involved. A great number of horrors are occurring, and it is incredibly regrettable.
Thank you, Councillor. Moving on to another question from Cassandra Polly asked a question. at the 16th of September council meeting, which was taken on notice. The question regarding the draft inclusive Wangaratta plan, in the spirit of transparency, what external organisations have formally submitted to the existing draft? Can I look to you, Director Goonan, please?
Absolutely, Mayor Rees. So there's three. So North East Health, Pride and Diversity, and Rainbow Local Government.
Thank you. I'll now move on to I'm going to move on to Barbara Griffiths, ask a question for the council meeting for tonight. Having attended a 6-hour workshop recently at the PAC, which is the Performing Arts Centre over the road, nearly every one of the 83 adjoining car parking spaces was used. It would not have been possible to exit the workshop to move my car. Whoever thought it okay to get rid of this parking extension for our arts precinct? Director Swart, give a response there, please.
Yes, thank you for that question. The plans for the creative precinct include new building elements extending into the current car park at the rear of the Wangaratta Performing Arts and Convention Centre and the gallery. A traffic impact assessment has been conducted as part of the proposal, which details the underutilised parking within the CBD available to meet the needs of the creative precinct. The current parking behind the venues is limited to 3 hours, and attendees of longer conferences and events are encouraged to park in all-day parking available within the CBD.
Thank you, Director. Are there any other public questions from the gallery floor? Lovely. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of this council meeting. We do have a confidential item that we will go to shortly, but Councillor Fuller had moved our council reports, council law reports, and to this time of the meeting, and I would like to put forward a report in relation to my term on council. So bear with me, and it may take a few moments to read. So it's come time to say goodbye and good luck to the rural city of Wangaratta, and maybe for some of you out there about me, good riddance. I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about government in general and share my thoughts on the last 8 years in council and 6 years as your mayor. I've truly loved and respected my role here. It has taught me a great deal about people, has opened my eyes to some of the limitations that local government has, while also highlighting the remarkable things that are achievable. I've always found it challenging to accept authority from the state and federal governments because I believe they don't fully understand our small communities and how they like to operate. The legislation crafted in Spring Street often feels disconnected from the realities of regional life, and our needs are different from those in the big city. I'm a firm believer that regional communities and local government are the heartbeat of Victoria. Councillors serve as the voice of you, the people, and it's crucial that we continue to have their representation on local matters. I'm concerned about the future of local government, especially with the increasing costs shifting from the state and the rising costs of running these organisations. The administration of excessive programs and policies unsustainable, which would be unsustainable in the private sector, poses a real financial risk. Yet our core responsibility is to improve the quality of life in our community. Council exists to serve the people with their needs at the forefront of everything we do. While we generally do this well, change and respect are always necessary. In a democracy, we must listen to the majority while also respecting the minority, and the minority need to respect the majority. Thanks for that, Lionheart. I've had the privilege of working alongside some incredible individuals whose dedication and attention to detail I've greatly appreciated. I know I will miss collaborating with them, their friendship, support, commitment, that have made a lasting impression on me. There are a few people in particular that I would like to acknowledge. These are the people I see daily and are willing to assist me at the drop of a hat. I want to make notice of a lady in Planning, Claire Coundry, Manager of Statutory Services. Our governance team, led with Andrew Lovett and Andrew Scoffin. Our amazing events team, Alicia, Karen, Dave, thank you for keeping me involved all the way along. Our field services team, previous Jamie Reid down there as manager, our current manager Lauren Mallins, and the great workers of our turf team that I'd like to point out, Glenn and Darren, who keep our grounds always looking their best. Thank you guys. Ben Thomas, Manager of Community Service, has a massive job and he does a great job. The people in our economic development team, led by Celeste and Janine, again, thank you guys for always helping me and listening. Our media and comms team with Felicity and Tori, who always help with making sure we get our marketing going out correct, and also make sure that I don't say the wrong thing, which happens a lot. The great association I have with Darren Macklin, Alan Thrum over the years prior to council and also during this council term, which I know I'll always continue to follow following my departure. So thank you guys. I'd also like to thank my EAs, and I've had a lot of them. I'm not sure if they got sick of me and they left, but I've had a few. Beck Collier, who was my EA for a long time. We had great times together. Zoe Giulio, what a great character. We've had great chats. I appreciate your time, Zoe. Superstar Aidan Newman, who was only here for a short term and is back. I look forward to seeing Amy again more on the social side. Megan, she's up the back there in the black. Mexi, thanks for the one-liners and the red jelly beans. Last but not least is the other lady up the back there. Probably, I hate to say it, sorry Megan, but she's been my favourite. I've loved working beside her. She's having a baby again, another one, and I'm going to miss that, but she's told me today she's going to keep informed all the way along. We have a great relationship. I've loved working with her. She's been a great support to me on weekends, Friday nights, everything when I need something or a ring, she's always there and responds to me. I'm actually asking to see if she can take the CEO's position. Thank you. Love your work. Thank you to our corporate management team, who have been also at my beck and call. And I want to talk about Sarah Brindley for a short time. Sarah is over here. You've got a big heart, Sarah, and probably that's a bad thing, council. But we need this on council. So thank you for being you and for all the hard work you do for this council. Marcus Goonan. My father always said, if you've got nothing nice to say. But I won't say that. Marcus, I really enjoy our discussions, especially when I'm right. But mostly we do agree. You have one of those tough jobs that I certainly would not like to have. But your service, your knowledge, your dedication to this job is respected by me. Thanks for humouring me. Stephen Swart. As planning being my portfolio and Stephen being our head planner, so to be. It's been enjoyable working alongside you, and I look forward to conversing with you up until the very last minute of my being on council. But there will be time, Stephen, for you to stand on your own 2 feet and down. Stop relying on this great advice that I give. But Stephen, overall, you've been a great combatant with me. I know we argue and fight and do bits and pieces, but I loved working with you. It's been a great challenge, and I know you've learnt a lot from me. And I know that you'll be on my phone list on a regular basis, and I look forward to that. But I do appreciate the service you give. It's very, it's again, it's a bit like Marcus's position. There's not a lot of things. You have to make some difficult decisions. You've done a great job, and I appreciate our friendship. Brendan. Yes, please. Brendan, I've enjoyed our many great conversations. Thank you for helping me deliver my thoughts and ideas, for being a great listener and a great eye roller at me. You challenge the small-minded part of me. We have many trips to Melbourne, Canberra to knock on politicians' doors asking for money, and we do this well, and I couldn't have asked for a better person to do that with. I think we've worked brilliantly together, and you've always been the number one in this organisation after me. With respect, cheers, good luck, and again, the friendship is great. Thank you. I do appreciate everything you've done for me, turning me into a better human. To all the people I've served with on council, my current councillors, you've been fantastic. Thank you for the years together, and thank you for supporting me as the mayor for 6 years. My previous council and you current councillors. To outgoing councillor Jack Harry, thank you for this term. You're a family man, a deep thinker. Thank you for thinking uniquely, sometimes on your own, but always with a passion for the community. Thank you. This council has achieved many milestones over the past 4/8 years for me, improving the town's aesthetics, our infrastructure, our community cohesion, and our economic development. These accomplishments mean we're recognised as one of the top 10 cities outside of Melbourne. I'd like to acknowledge the work I do with Federal Minister Helen Haines. Sorry, she's not a minister, but Federal Member Helen Haines. Being the Mayor alongside Helen has been rewarding, and being in that term for 6 years, we have developed a relationship that when I ring, she answers. And I like that. We have a relationship that is one of respect. I thank her for her support for me, for our council, and continuing to advocate for the community at a federal level, which she does a great job. I thank our state member, Tim McCurdy. Let me tell you a story about Tim. I was lost on a subject more recently, and I rang him last week. He was in a sitting week. He took my phone call. I'm hearing the bell go off. He has to go back to Parliament. I said, have you got to go? He goes, no, I'd rather talk to you. I have to go into sitting, but I'll get in there late, just so I can talk to you. This is what we need from our local representative. Thanks for all you have done for this council and your community. You've been an advocate for us all the way along, and you will continue to do so. I appreciate your time and showing me through the halls of Parliament down there in Melbourne. He walks me around and shouts me beer, so it's been fantastic to have him introduce me to politicians, again, which has led to great success over 6 years to be able to get money for our community. I'd also like to make quick mention of Jacqueline Symes, who is the Attorney General and our upper house member for Northern Victoria. Jacqueline Symes has always been ready and able on the phone for a quick conversation, always returns the calls, gets back to us and advocates for this area because she comes from this area. So thank you, Jacqueline Symes. I'd like to mention a few people. To the Wangaratta community, thank you for allowing me to be your mayor and for your support over the years. I'd like to mention a few people in particular who have always been encouraging. I want to thank people, and just so happens they're in the crowd tonight, so thank you, Sandra and Peter Headland, Mark and Clive Pullen, Maxim Barbetti, Paula McGavin, Jeff Daly, for people who have been supportive of me. I'd like to also thank businesses that I'm involved with regularly during our discussions over the years to help benefit the community. To Matt Salmon, Mike Noble, Gary Nash, thanks for great conversations and championing Wangaratta with me. There are many more who give me great support to me, including, and I'll mention former Mayor and former longest serving Mayor before me, Jeff Dinning, Don Joyce, and of course Ken Clark, who was Mayor prior to me, that sort of taught me the ropes a bit along the way. I'd like to thank you to my friendship group who's always listened to me, to the whinges, the whines, the gripes, especially Wayne and Candice, Linton and Alana, Dan and Amanda, and Chris and Megan. Thank you guys for being the support and putting up with me. Thank you to my extended family, my mum and dad, Andrew, Steve and Nicole. Thanks for their constant support, the babysitting, the meals, and for fixing the things that I haven't had time to fix. To my greatest supporters, and they're here in the crowd too. Lexi, Oliver, hey boy, and of course my beautiful wife Marnie. I'm looking forward to being home more often cooking, being a part of this family again, and being there when you need me most. Thank you for all the love, the smooches, every night, boy. And I couldn't have done this job without the support that you guys have given me over the last 8 years. So thank you. So everyone, so long. See you around. And most importantly, I'll see you around this great place we call the rural city of Wangaratta. It's my home and the place that I want to spend my life. Goodbye and good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we have this report tabled in the minutes. There's a lot of good information in there that people will reflect on with great fondness, just like your time here. Thank you.
Thank you. Seconded for that. Councillor Fitzpatrick, thank you. All those in favour? Report that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. If there's nothing further with the council reports, does anybody else have anything in council reports they need to say? No? Councillor Harry.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Rees. I'll just jump in off the cuff. I certainly won't jump in with something quite as well prepared or quite as long as what you've just provided us. I guess, yeah, as a councillor who's not standing again, I just want to take a very brief moment to thank all the officers and staff and my fellow councillors that I've worked with along the way. I certainly have taken a different perspective on some things often, as Dean's pointed out, and I know I haven't always been the easiest person to work with in that regard. It's created some tense moments and some vigorous discussion, but I really do genuinely hope that it's been a rewarding experience for everyone involved, as it has been to me. The role certainly takes a lot. That's something that I've learned along the way. It takes a really big time commitment, and it takes a lot of energy and effort, especially to do the role justice. And with a growing family, I took it upon myself to make a decision not to nominate again, just so I could spend more time with my family and be there for the moments which I just wasn't willing to make the sacrifice to miss those moments. So that's really it. Finally, I guess I thank the community members that gave me an opportunity, really gave me the privilege and honour to be able to serve as one of your local representatives for the past 4 years. So thank you for a little bit of that.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have, Councillor Fitzpatrick.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to take a moment as one of the councillors to say thank you and I appreciate our team leader, Mayor Councillor Dee Rees, for his strong leadership and commitment to the rural city of Wangaratta for the past 8 years. Your hard work and legacy hasn't gone unnoticed, and you will be missed. And also acknowledging Marnie, Lexi and Oliver for their support during this journey. You guys have missed out on a lot in supporting your husband, your dad, to be here and advocate and support our community. So I say thank you. So I wish Jean and your family all the very best in your next chapter. So thank you guys.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more item on the agenda, and it's a confidential business item, which we will go into the next room, and Councillor Fuller will stay out and sing a song. Councillor Fuller, can you please direct us to your conflict again, please, for this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just reiterating that I'll stay in the room as I have a material conflict in nature in regards to a family member who sits on the board as part of the events group that benefits. So I'll move a motion that Council resolves to close the meeting to the members of the public in accordance with Provision 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020. Consider the following item: consideration of events planning. Item 22.1 is confidential under the Local Government Act as it contains information relating to legal privileged information and private commercial information.
Sorry, you move that motion a second, please, Councillor Benson. All those in favour? Move. Thank you. We'll be back shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay. We have some coffee and sandwiches up here. We won't be long out in this room, and we'll be back. Thank you.
Yeah, those, and everyone close off.
To reopen the meeting, to close the meeting. Thank you, Andre.
Very well put, Dave. Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Fitzpatrick again. All those in favour? Thank you. And the motion's carried. Are you standing for So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight, being a part of this great council meeting and being a part of the great rural city of Wangaratta. Appreciate your attendance here today. This is our last council meeting of this council. Brendan, thank you for the great work and thank you for your for all the work you do. So, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night and good luck. And as I say in our briefing sessions, councillors, let's go out and do it to them before they do to us. Thank you and good night.